Nigeria rises 15 places on World Bank's Ease of Doing Business ranking. Federal government's October bonds oversubscribed by 105 billion naira. NNPC signs upstream focus memorandum of understanding with Russian oil company Lukoil. On this edition of Business Express, our focus will be on the Ease of Doing Business ranking and the recently concluded annual meetings of the World Bank and IMF. We are reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital, and I am Muplang, Dakok. We begin on a cheery note. The latest World Bank's Ease of Doing Business ranking has revealed that Nigeria is now ranked 131, moving up by 15 places from the 146th position it previously ranked. This report released Thursday also indicates that Nigeria conducted reforms impacting 6 indicators, including making the enforcement of contracts easier, which placed the 200 million person economy among the world's top improvers. Only 2 sub-Saharan African economies ranked in the top 50 on the Ease of Doing Business rankings, while most of the bottom 20 economies in the global rankings are from the region. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari, who is in Sochi, Russia, has hailed Nigeria's improvement in the World Bank's 2020 Doing Business Index. Special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, in a statement said the report also named Nigeria as one of the top 10 most improved economies in the world for the second time in 3 years. The president noted that the announcement by the World Bank indicates that Nigeria's mandate to move into the top 70 doing business destinations by 2023 remains achievable. This latest ranking, he stated, is a testimony that the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council's work towards the fulfillment of the projections of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan is on course. Nigeria's improved ranking in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index is a development that will certainly help to attract more foreign investments into the country. The Buhari Media Organization, in a statement signed by its chairman, Niyi Akinsiju, and secretary Kasidi Madweke, said it was a reflection that the large inflow of foreign direct investment into the country was due to positive outcome of federal government's policies. The group noted that foreign investments enabled an inflow of about $8 billion in 2018 in at least 85 projects, leading to the creation of about 10,000 jobs in the country, among others. Paul Alaje joins us from Lagos to discuss the Ease of Doing Business ranking. He is a financial analyst. Welcome to the program.
Pardon me, and good afternoon.
All right, let's have your take on Nigeria's leap in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business report.
Good news for Nigeria. Nigeria has moved from where we were, 146, approximately 145, to where we are now. Remember, a call that we used to be in the region of 161. We leaped at some point to 145. later went back to 146, and now the good news is that we are now in 131, which is better than what we had in 2010 and 2011. Our highest ranking in the recent time have been 2008, where we were 125. Hopefully, if the energy continues to go along reforms, perhaps Nigeria will go among top 50 countries when it comes to ease of doing business. So there are some improvements that Nigeria has now witnessed, one of which is enforcement of contract, which used to be a bit challenging. Then ease of paying taxes also becomes relatively better, and also registering business. You recall that in the past 2-3 years, what we've been having is more of paying taxes, which is people can pay their taxes online. Also, registration of businesses no longer take 2 months, 3 months. Businesses could be registered, five businesses could be registered in a week. There are good news when it comes to the administrative part of doing business, and I believe coming period will do something more in terms of infrastructure so that we can move even better than 131 that we are right now. So it's a good news, and I think more businesses will come to Nigeria, and we can see more of that in the coming period.
All right. There's the AFCFTA in sight. What do you see as the implications, and do you see Nigeria hitting that goal with this new information? Do you see an improvement?
Yeah, first of all, African Continental Free Trade Agreement, one of the things countries we want to use to get investors to come establish an organization in their countries to ease of doing business. We still have countries that are doing relatively better than Nigeria. One of them, perhaps the country taking the lead in Africa, is Rwanda. I believe that Nigeria can do more. In the coming period, we will focus on things that make countries score higher points, which we have started to focus on now. I believe Nigeria can do more, perhaps surpass Rwanda. So it's a good news for us. We've surpassed a number of countries in terms of indicators which we use: access to power supplies, of getting credits, construction permits, etc., etc. About 10 of them that were listed on this of doing business. So for me, it's a good one for Nigeria. And in the coming period, I believe that Nigeria, even beyond African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Nigeria will have more and more in terms of investment. So this is it. What government have done is to put a lot in terms of administrative solution, which is very good. It cannot be undermined. What I think government should do now, the focus of Mr. President and his team, is now on structural transformation, which will affect power supply, which will affect construction. And I believe focus is put on that. You will see that Nigeria will suddenly become a rainbow country, where you see so many colored white, black come to do business here in Nigeria. And we have the population, we have the market. It's a good one for us, and in the coming period, you will not be surprised when you start seeing some of these people around.
All right. With this, what will you say should be the next steps to be taken with this feat that has been achieved, so that the country can sustain the tempo of the increases?
Yeah, the next step I think should be taken is to look at the Economic Advisory Council, let them have a copy of this. I'm sure they already have a copy, and also the Economic Management team, Mr. President, to look at how did we get here from over 160 to 131, and what is our next target. When there is no target, when there is no vision, a people perish. When there is no people, there is no vision. So what should be our next target? Perhaps should be, how do we join top 50 countries when it comes to ease of doing business? There were countries that were worse than Nigeria when they started, but because administration in those countries had specific focus and some things in mind for them to achieve the feat where they are this moment today. I strongly believe Nigeria can do the same. I strongly believe Nigeria can also consider that. If you look at areas where we scored really poor, one of them is power supply. Power supply was really, really poor for Nigeria, and we know the truth here on ground. Access of getting credit is relatively good because of so many transformation. Central Bank of Nigeria and all around the deposit money bank. Yeah, Nigeria may have some issues when it comes to actually getting the real credit, but when you do business with, to some extent, some of the CBN, MPC, and MPC meetings have made access to finance get relatively easier. Also, registering business, it's an open knowledge that registering business in Nigeria is relatively better. Paying tax is also relatively better today. So government should look at those areas where we have not improved in the last 5-10 years and see what are the steps with which we can adopt for us to improve. And I think that's the solution anyway. That is what so many countries have done, is to partner with those that can achieve these results, and we can do just the same.
Thank you very much, Paul Alaje, for joining us on Business Express today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Paul Alaje joined us via Skype from Lagos. And in other news, Nigeria and Russia have signed a memorandum of understanding which will enable both countries' oil giants, that's the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, the NNPC, and Russia's Lukoil, to elevate commercial relationship to a government-to-government backed partnership. With signing of the MOU, NNPC and Lukoil will work together in upstream operations and revamp some of Nigeria's refineries. Group Managing Director of NNPC, Mele Kyari, and President of the leading Russian oil company, Lukoil, signed the MOU, which entails cooperation in deep offshore exploration of oil in Nigeria. Earlier, at a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, President Muhammadu Buhari said Nigeria is prepared and willing to work with Russian businesses to improve the efficiency of the oil and gas sector. President Buhari gave an assurance that his administration will ensure this initiative is implemented within the shortest possible time.
Clearly state that the time has come with this historic summit today for Africa and the Russian Federation to develop new mutually beneficial relations. On our part, I want to assure Russian friends that Africa is resolute and ready. We look forward to embracing the new dawn of Africa-Russia partnership in general and the revitalized Nigeria-Russia relationship.
The Australian dollar and China's yuan, often seen as barometers of investor risk appetite, rose on Friday on hopes of progress in US-China trade talks. Let's see how the Naira is exchanging for other international currencies. To discuss on the recently concluded annual meetings of the World Bank and IMF and the takeaways for Nigeria are two of NTA's business correspondents who were at the meetings which took place in Washington, D.C., USA. Leah Katung Babatunde is to my right, and the gentleman on my left is Chimobi Walter Naji. It's good to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us on the program.
So, how did discussions go at the just concluded IMF and World Bank meetings?
Well, I would say it was a fantastic outing for Nigeria, even though generally the turnout is one of the poorest in recent times. But at least Nigeria was able to benefit on many fronts. And of course, you know, Nigeria is leading the Anglophone countries to the delegation there. So Nigeria was able to come out with some gains that we will begin to see take shape in the course of the coming months.
Okay. Walter, can you tell us the projected growth for Africa by 2020? It was projected to be at 3.6%. What was the advice for Nigeria and how the country can exceed this projection?
Yeah, exactly. You just mentioned it. You said 3.6%. That's the projection for 2020 for African growth. But of course, for Nigeria in particular, to be able to exceed that projection, a number of advice was actually given. And first of all, that included the issue of job creation. And Nigeria had to do a lot in ensuring that it created more jobs for its teeming youths who are leaving the schools and joining the labor market. And of course, other issues is the good thing we just got the ease of doing business ranking that was just released by the World Bank. Nigeria was actually advised to improve its ease of doing business, which the country has been doing in the past. Since 2016, you see we've moved up to 39 places since 2016 up till now, moving presently we're at 131. And that's actually a very big plus for the country. And of course, a lot of other issues came up at the meeting. One of them also included the issue of infrastructure. That Nigeria must get its infrastructure right if you must talk about development, if you must talk about the gains of democracy. You must get your infrastructure right for the real sector to improve. Road infrastructure must be there. Power sector must be dealt with, and all these other facets of development.
And if I may add also education, the out-of-school children was also one of those issues that were prominently talked about in Nigeria, to get more funding for the education sector, to get more children in school, and also to pay special attention to the issue of inclusion, both educationally and also financially, for especially the women and the young adults.
All right. A similar issue close to education would be gender issues. What were those issues?
Well, I would say Walter had a nice time with Kristalina Yugiva.
So what are you tell us about the gender issues?
Yes, Kristalina actually took out time to, explain a lot of the issues surrounding the gender, in Africa especially, how gender affects development. Women also, were made to understand, have a larger chunk of the population. For instance, in Nigeria, where you have a projected population of 200 million, women are expected to get 51% of that total population, before you talk about the youths and children, and then men, of course. So that tells you that women are, a very sensitive sector that you have to pay adequate attention to. And so Nigeria was advised, among other African countries, obviously, to pay adequate attention to women. That if you empower women, for instance, you've empowered a lot of other people, because women have dependents. And of course, again, women were actually again looked at as people who are very good and prudent in managing businesses. It would come as a surprise to you that women, according to World Bank and IMF, when given responsibilities, tend to deliver on those responsibilities very, very well. And well, you could say, you could say that, but that's unfortunately or fortunately what the research shows. So women are one of the basic elements of the society that you must pay adequate attention to if you must get jobs created for the country.
Okay, can we talk about issue of climate change? It was another issue, I guess, that was discussed.
Climate change, of course, it's been a factor driving conflict and promoting a lot of frictions all across the globe, Africa inclusive. And so now what the World Bank did was to include Nigeria into the 3 countries who were earlier scheduled to get some benefits in the Lake Chad region, that is Cameroon, Niger, and Chad. But unfortunately, Nigeria wasn't included, but Nigeria was able to find her way into this list, and we're going to be among the first set of beneficiaries at the first stage, which is going to come in stages. And a team will be coming from the World Bank to meet with the Northeast Development Commission. So with that, we're going to see some infrastructure put in place to control especially migration that is causing conflicts all over the place. So people remain where they are, get their livelihoods where they are, without having to migrate all over the place when there's absolutely no need to do so.
Okay. Chimobi, can you tell us what was discussed about the ECOWAS proposed ECOWAS currency?
This was a very sensitive discussion, you know, as far as the IMF meetings were concerned, and it was a discussion that was, well, you may say, to the heart of many of us who attended that meeting.
So how do African or other countries rather perceive this
well,
ECOWAS currency?
exactly. The ECOWAS currency is expected to, if it comes, you know, to fruition, is expected to help ease doing business around the ECOWAS region first, and also it's expected to help in the integration, you know, of bilateral relations between the ECOWAS countries. You know, such in a way that if you want to do exchange, if you want to do trade or whatever it is, when you have one a single means of exchange, it makes it a lot more easier. And then it's also going to help boost the effect of the AFCFTA agreement that has been signed in Africa. You know, when you have this already in place in the ECOWAS region, that integration will be very easy for countries who already are doing business among themselves.
All right, Leah, can you give us other takeaways from the meetings?
Okay, well, I would say for Nigeria, one of the majors is the power sector intervention, which Nigeria has been discussing with the World Bank. But now there's been the misconception that the World Bank has given Nigeria $3 billion. Actually, Nigeria is in talks with the World Bank, and Nigeria is asking for up as much as $4 billion to be able to not only fix the generation, but also to work on the distribution. Now they're not just giving Nigeria the money. Some of this assistance is coming in the form of technical assistance. So really it's not all cash that the World Bank will just take and just say, Nigeria, take. You have to earn it, you have to justify it, and you have to prove as a nation that this is where these monies are going to. This is the repayment plan, and this is how we're going to execute it. So Nigeria is still having a lot of work to do, and the first tranche, if all sails through, will begin to come in April 2020.
And just to add a little bit to what Leah just said about power, yes, because the issue of the first tranche coming in April, the minister also was able to tell us that that money, when it comes, it's not just going to be used for any development, you know, in particular. It's going to a particular sector, the power sector, and not just the power sector, but the transmission, you know, line in the distribution. So it's going to affect all the distribution chain, all the value chain in the power sector at the end of the day. But this is also helping us to get that power problem solved once and for all in Nigeria.
Yes, we'll get there by God's grace. Thank you very much, Shimobi, for coming on Business Express, and you too, Leah, for joining us today.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys after the program for what you brought for me from Washington. All right, moving on. Trading on the stock market closed in red this Friday. The all-share index depreciated by 0.03%, and it closed at 26,348.73 basis points. Investors exchanged 371 million shares valued at 2.5 billion naira, traded in 2,736 deals, while market capitalization stood at 12.8 trillion naira. Guarantee Trust Bank, WAPCO, and UBA were the top gainers for the day, while Dangote Cement, Guinness, and CCNN were the losers for the day. Asian markets struggled for gains on Friday as investors searched for guidance on developments in the US and China trade wars. Over to Bosede Abel.
European stocks traded low on Friday, the 25th of October, after UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced plans to push for a fresh general election in December, while corporate earnings season remains in focus. Asian market traded mixed as investors searched for guidance on developments in the US-China trade war and in the UK's planned departure from the European Union. The Nikkei topped 0.22% to close at 22,799.81. Shanghai Composite rose 0.48% to 2,954.93, and the Hang Seng Index 0.49%. strength. U.S. stock index futures traded mixed. Dow futures fell 28 points and indicated a slightly higher open. Futures on the S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite both edged slightly higher. In Africa, stocks were mostly positive. Ghana's GSE, Namibia's overall index, Nairobi's all-share, and Tunisia's Tunidex opened trade high.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Business Express. You can access all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can communicate with us on Twitter. The handle is @NTA News Now. The hashtag is BizX. We value your feedback, so keep the mails coming. And join us again next week, Monday, for another episode of the program. I am Muplang Dakok, urging you, as always, to keep thinking and doing business.